Welcome to another edition of AutoAudiography. This one may be a little polarizing, if judging by me even talking to people, it may be polarizing. What does that sentence even mean? Talking to... Alright, I'm done trying to be cryptic, and you already know what it is anyway. It is Adele's 25, the newest album from the goddess Adele, 2015 on XL, well, it's XL Recordings, Columbia Records. There's just standard black. There's the inside sleeve. Standard black LP, 180 gram, nice and heavy. Now, this is the newest album that I've done on here, but it can't be overstated how much this album actually means to me. I'm going to start back to my history of pop music. As you have seen in some of my other AutoAudiography videos, I was very into punk rock, heavily into punk rock and hardcore music, which means when I started to get into that, I thought that I couldn't listen to anything on the radio. I couldn't listen to anything that was in the masses and everybody that, if it was on the radio, it wasn't worth it. It was just some type of media grab. It was some type of just, the population was wrong. The populace was wrong. The underground was where all the music was. As getting older, I'm a sucker for a good pop hook. I can't help it. If I hear a good pop hook, I'm sold. That being said, it's hard for me to even consider Adele pop, although it is on the radio, and obviously she sold crazy amounts of records. But the way I see Adele, and it's crazy to even think this way, but it's the only way I could compare it. The way that I see Adele, I can only compare it to maybe seeing the Beatles, like how they're just this out of these world people, and it's such a different level of talent, and it's such a different level of insight you see in their music, and such a different depth to the music. I could also be the way that I see that people saw Elvis. It just seems revolutionary to me. Everything that she does on this album, it's almost flawless. And I say almost because you could pick some shit out here and there, a tiny little sound you didn't like, a certain note that you could have felt went another way. But I feel like she's such a mysterious figure, yet she's in the spotlight for everything. I tried to shelter myself from knowing anything about her personally because I loved her so much as a musician. I didn't want to learn she was an awful human being, or to see even hear her talk, because I thought it would, I don't know, change my perception of her. If anything, it's made it better. It seems to me that she's an unbelievable person. Absolutely hilarious, so down to earth, it seems. Now, I hate when people say that, but I've never thought that about a celebrity, truly. And especially one of this caliber, who this artist, she seems to be transcending music. She's brought crooning back into the world. I mean, where's Tom Jones been? Doesn't matter anymore because Adele's here. One of the songs on here, When We Were Young, the first time I heard it, my eyes watered up immediately. That song makes me yearn, and I've talked about it before. I've talked about some of my childhood. I might get into it a little bit in other videos, and maybe even a little in this one. But the song When We Were Young, it makes me yearn for a childhood that I feel like I never had. There were a lot of, I've kind of forced myself to grow up very quickly. I don't know. I kind of regret it to a point, but I don't regret anything that ever happened to me because it made me who I am, and I'm proud of who I am. But I kind of forced myself to grow up, and I didn't kind of enjoy my youth. I always put pressure on myself to be mature and to try to be an adult in every situation, and I didn't enjoy it as much as I should have. And When We Were Young kind of chronicles this romance, the younger romance, and how everything is, the lyrics, you look like a movie, you sound like a song. It's just crazy to me how much I can relate to that, and how much it makes me yearn for a childhood that I never had. I mean, there's not a song on here that I wouldn't, or there's not a song on here I would skip over, period. anytime this goes on the turntable, it plays from track 1 through the last track on side B. It's every song. I truly didn't think I would ever feel the way about an artist that I do about Adele. I mean, it's crazy to me to even, if you would have told me even when her second album came out, I kind of liked it a little bit. But if you would have told me when her, like, right before her second album came out, that Adele would be in my top 3 favorite artists of all time, I would tell you you're an idiot. But after this album came out, it changed everything for me. And there is another album that will go along with this, but this is one of the 2 albums that truly, I started to be able to emotionally connect to music in a different way other than angst and anger and just, excitement almost. I was finally able to see deeper into it and kind of release some of the possible sadness, some of the longing, some of the other emotions that I hold in all the time. I hold in all my emotions. I bottle everything up, like I'm sure a lot of people do. But for some reason, listening to this album allows me to let go of some and kind of release. And I'll be 100% honest with you, I've wept listening to this album when we were young in particular. But there's other songs also that there'll be pieces where just tears are in my eyes and I can't help it. Now, when people look at me outside and I'm not holding an Adele album, and then we start a conversation and I tell them I love Adele, they think I'm joking. I tell them I almost spent my entire bank account to buy Adele tickets. Luckily, it didn't happen. Luckily, tickets were sold out and I couldn't spend all my money. Then I tried spending it all on Hamilton. We'll get to that. Never. I don't need to talk about that anymore. But the level of artist that Adele is inspires me to just be a better person all around. Like, not even to just be a better creator of what I want to create, not to just be a better, I'm not a musician, but if I were, it would inspire me to be a better musician. It inspires me to be a better person. It inspires me to live my life differently, which I think is such a goal that you could try to grab for as an artist, but unless you have a special something, you'll never be able to pull it off. And Adele did it. And it's just unbelievable how every song on this album touches me in some way, how I can connect with it in some way. And maybe it's the age I am, maybe, where I'm listening to music differently. Maybe I've finally given over. I finally have gotten over myself enough to listen to music a certain way. But even other things, they don't get to me as much as this album in particular does. I don't. There will be a video on the other album I'm talking about making me emotional. Maybe I'll do it next week. I don't know. But the emotions that I felt for this album, maybe the first time that I ever couldn't hold it back, if you will. They would bubble up inside of me, and I couldn't do anything about it. I knew what was happening, but I couldn't do anything about it. And actually, a little story about when we were young, which is how awful of a son I am, actually. During Christmas, we go over to my grandfather's house. I take a turntable. I take some Christmas albums. It was Christmas time. This album had just came out a month or so before, maybe. So I took this over. I told my mother she had to hear it. I put it on. I had the record player right under all of the family pictures of her when she was young, of her sisters when she was young, of her mom, everybody. My grandmother passed away in 95 of cancer, so that was a long time ago. That was out of mind. But my aunt, her sister, had just passed away that year. And my mom sat down facing the pictures while When We Were Young was playing. And as the tears started welling up in my eyes from the song alone, my mom is weeping. And because she's just thinking of her childhood, thinking of her sister who's no longer with her. And I had to leave the room because I would have started to babble. I felt so bad. Don't get me wrong, my mother loved the song, but I didn't think of how invested she was going to listen, how deeply she was going to listen, and it was a crazy moment. From then on, my mom still tears up when she listens to the song. If it's because she thinks of her sister, that's okay, because then that song will always be the remembrance of her sister. I'll always tear up for the song itself. Like I said, what it does to me. But I also think that it's a song now that my mother and I will share for the rest of our lives, which it's kind of awesome. I mean, there's not too many of those out there. My mother and I we drifted apart a little bit during my youth, and by drifted I mean we're forced apart by each other. And whenever we came back into each other's lives, we were both such positive influence on each other. I couldn't say how much my mother means to me. At this point, she's one of the strongest women I ever met. And anytime I hear Adele sing and she sings about being a strong woman, I actually do think of my mother. And it puts a smile on my face, and then she'll turn around and she'll make me weep like a child. But Adele's 25. It's one of the best albums, complete albums I've ever heard. It'll forever be on my playlist, if you will. I have a hard time talking about this album because of how uncomfortable I am with my own emotions and how emotional it actually makes me. But I love Adele. I love this album. I love a good catchy pop hook. And I don't know. I guess I'm just an emotional guy now. I'm just that guy who just will cry at the drop of a dime. I used to not have feelings. Now, if I see roadkill, it bothers me. Hopefully it's a step in the right direction. Because there was a time where I was fearing I was a sociopath. And I think if you cry to Adele, you're not a sociopath. That's what we're going to get from this. If you cry to Adele, you're not a sociopath. It's going to be a shorter one because I don't want to get emotional. And I think if I talk about this too much, I might. Maybe I'll just do a whole video on When We Were Young, which is just me crying for the length of the song. Nobody wants to see that. Thank you for watching. I still would like your opinions on Adele. I know they might not be as crazy as mine, who sees her the equivalent of like the Beatles, that they saw the Beatles in the 60s, the equivalent that people saw Elvis in his time. It's crazy to me. Thank you for watching. I don't know what that noise was. What's going on with my wrist? Stay straight. What's happening? What? I gotta switch hands. I still feel weird about my wrist. What's happening? You'd think I never saluted before. This might be me covering my emotions up with humor. I am worried about my wrist, though. Both? Whatever. Yeah, okay.